Limited time only. May 31st deadline. Now, just go around these things before.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Not to me.
Housing Authority meeting to order April 20th, 2026. For starting with annual meeting.
Annual meetings, it's that time again. As you know, April 1st is the start of our fiscal year. I did, with Kevin's permission, drop the mayor, the new mayor, a note and sent him a appointment letter to make it as easy for him as possible, but I've not yet received the letter, but I
The lifetime appointment for Darlene.
Okay, well, I put some, so I might be a longer.
Good for you. Good for you. So as soon as I get that, I'll scan it and send it out to them.
What's your process?
If, Darlene would like to motion to elect Kevin Markowski as chair and
Yeah, so.
Carl Anderson as vice chair.
Yes. So, I make that motion.
One
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I want to thank Darlene for her continued service on the board. I think she's been a great addition. We made some contributions in a very short tenure thus far. And as always, I deeply appreciate Kevin and Carl taking on these leadership roles. So it's a lot in light of their busy schedules. We appreciate them taking the time to further our mission, vision, and values. So thank you, gentlemen.
I'm a BSc and a judge and two. It's just incredible.
We don't.
You know the saying, you go to the busiest people when they need something done.
Great. Just move on to any general concerns? No, nothing. You been talking to the tenants?
Well, so for the most part, the discussions have been just disgruntled. Some people being disgruntled with a neighbor, this or that, and I just try to tell them, let your neighbor be your neighbor. If it doesn't specifically involve you, just let it go. Just let it go.
Apparently, we were nice earlier.
Well, there's always the request of mediation line that I use frequently. Well, I can't get to it. Well, you can contact the office, request a mediation. They'll be happy to sit with both of you and see if they can help you get things resolved.
There you go. Good. Great. Need approval of the minutes from the March 14th meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. And I'm sure you are short now.
I am indeed.
That's great. Correspondence.
Well, as I reported to you some months back, there were some profound discrepancies in the information that the previous section program manager had submitted with the annual Section 8 Management Assessment Program. And after a powwow with Kevin and Carl, we made the decision to pull back that data and present accurate data. And as such, I did issue a revised Section 8 score, bringing us from a high performer, earlier of sort of falsity, to what is unfortunately a common performer. We have implemented a corrective action plan, not at HUD's request, but sort of an internal corrective action plan, which resulted in Carla come in and do some work for us. She's done an extraordinary job, and I'll let her take a moment or two to report out on what she's found and what we need to do moving forward.
Okay, so, after long conversations with Heather at HUD, there is no way that you are going to get out of trouble status within the next 12 months. It is a designation that requires you to show a pattern here of correction and correctness. So what I need to talk to Kevin about today is we need to get the CMAP scores in so that you can at least be rated. Right now, there's no way you can pass and get a positive CMAP score because of your inspections. Basically, I have reviewed all of January, February, and March's research. I did most of March and most of April's research, and in every single one of them found errors. The person doing them obviously cut corners, and I'm not willing to cut corners. That's not what my job is. So basically, if you go in, there's a public website, it's the HUD dashboard. You can go in and look, and if you look, there are probably half of the housing authorities in the state of the United States that are in trouble staffing. Only because the HUD rules are so ridiculous to meet. So my plan going forward is, and I have an action plan. Unfortunately, Kevin and I have not been able to talk to you about it, but Kevin and I will hash this out. My action plan is to get you on target with research, to get them so that they are absolutely correct and done within a timely manner. If a research is due 5/1, they have to be done on or before 4/1 in order to give your tenants a 30-day notice of any rent change. Increase mostly. And everybody is having increases. So there are a lot of things not gathered in that, which I will take care of. Your inspections continue to be a problem. Kevin is working on that. I shared with him today another rule that HUD has put into place to make inspections nearly impossible to maintain compliance with their rules. Kevin and I will have to talk about that. Kevin is working on a contracted inspector who I believe we will need to train in the Inspire rules, which are really restrictive. You fail for one GFI outlet not working. So that will be, we are catching up on them. Most of the landlords' apartments are down.
Is it our apartments or the landlord's?
Landlords.
Right?
Your apartments, I have not heard anything about. I've not been in them, which is one of my goals, is to do, I believe I can do your quality control inspections. So I will plan some time to go out to, and it's only a percentage of them I need to do. That should suffice with HUD to, but I have to go online and take Inspire training to basically get certified before I do that, which is in my process. I want to, there's no control over your disbursements to landlords. That needs to happen. So I'm building a process that payments will be balanced every single month before payments are made. When inspections fails, I have to abate the half payment. When you abate a half payment, the landlord never receives that money. So I plan on having a meeting with the landlords to explain the rules, to explain the inspection and how different it is. And quite frankly, there are some landlords whose apartments will never pass inspire. And so over the next few months, I'm hoping to be able to work with those tenants to find adequate, safe housing. And I am slowly doing an audit of all of 25 and 26 research done, which are about 300 to 400. Unfortunately, the mistakes that were made were the housing authority's mistakes. So there is no way for you to recoup the money if you overpay landlords, but you do have to reimburse the tenant if you overcharge them, which has happened in a number of cases. When I came here, I came in the end of December. I found November research not done. I found the December research not done. I have completed all of those. They're on target. I have a spreadsheet that will, at the end of the day, tell you how much money you will basically overhead money you pay correctly. And it has to be out of non-federal dollars. So you can't say, well, take it out of that half payment. It doesn't work that way. The current Section 8 staff is hopefully receiving any support I can give them. Ongoing training will occur. You're not using the SAVE program. And I have found one family applicant who are all from Peru, except a baby who was born here. Their documents indicate that they have a work status only, which automatically disqualifies them. So Greg and I, and maybe you, will learn. I know the SAVE system. Unfortunately, the minute I run someone through SAVE, it triggers an automatic report to Homeland Security and ICE. So my policy on this, and I hope one will adopt, is that we contact those people first and say, this is what happens if I run it through our system, and allow them to withdraw their application.
Are they in house right now?
No, there was some questions on until I looked into it and got the birth certificate out, and she was going to Puerto Rico. So she's all good.
Oh, is that part of the experience? Sorry.
The last time I did, but I haven't seen all your records yet. You have some very unusual names, and I will look on the profile and whatever, but we will look at everyone's birth certificates to make sure you're in compliance. I personally don't believe in reporting anything. Sarah and I are going to work. I have them on job descriptions and non-accountability authority
For SOP, entire department.
So that, along with making sure research and done, inspections, landlord, I deal with the landlords that are difficult. And you might hear from them because I am pretty much basic and out there and say, no, I refuse to pay you. So
Push back getting thrown they're still different standard. and now they're getting told to fix things, and they're not gonna even pay for things.
Getting involved. Sure, we have one landlord in town, who like, meet me in the backyard. But he is, in fact, a slum landlord. His apartment should never have passed some inspection in the first place.
So are the areas on the research, putting them on increment, putting
Almost everything.
most everything on the research stuff.
Right. One of the big things is around independent and disabled, elderly and disabled exemption, a lot was a big part of it. So the previous section manager, you heard of HOFNA, the new legislation, Housing Opportunity for Modernization Act that passed in 2016, still has not been implemented. So anyway,
Pieces of it.
pieces of it, yes, pieces of it, haven't been fully implemented. Well, part of that was they were gonna change the elderly and disabled exemption and the deduction for minors from 400 and 480 to 550 and 500. That has not been implemented yet. The previous section manager had implemented that, so all of those, I mean, we're talking like $2, $3, $4 difference in people's rent, but it is a difference, and it's not, so. That was a small one, but that's almost everyone that was done in January, February, part of them, maybe.
There's multiple components that across the board.
There's other areas.
You would collect data on their assets, and that's one of those stuff that rule. Doesn't matter if there's $5 a year, but you have to prove it.
They have to prove it and put some interest to it and add to the.
Right, and it's a good thing. When I looked at one of them, I guess because I look at things in detail where other people don't. It was pay stubs, and I looked down and she has a withdrawal from out for every paycheck for the retirement account. It's not showing in the system, she could have $100,000. And that's because it's a retirement account, under the Department rules, as long as it's an IRS money, we recognize retirement, it's excluded, but you still have to record it.
Right.
If people have China cards or those pay cards, she never got receipts to show what the balances were. Those are all things that HUD will look for if they ever become a new.
Sure.
So,
Thankfully, those ones don't typically affect them, right? Too much, are still wrong. So like, the interest usually is not enough to amount to anything to affect their rent at all, but it could, especially in the case of a
it doesn't
retirement,
matter,
but it's still wrong.
it doesn't matter if it affects the rent or not, those are the rules, and HUD pays you $260,000 a month for your programs. If they say jump, you jump. Okay. I do believe, and I've not yet proved it, but I will. I do believe there was some language that she particularly liked in past departments that shouldn't be. She fudged, we have what are called payment standards. And we took the payment standard, what their rent is, what utilities they pay. If there's a difference and it's over the payment standard, the tenant pays the balance. She calls it payment standards in many cases to the
So clearly, there's a lot of repair that needs to be done. Again, want to acknowledge the great work that Carla is doing in that area. Hopefully, we will be able to submit a clean schema for the fiscal year ending 3/31/26. But the scope of the corrections are such that we're not going to, the last thing we want to do is, we'll never have a situation come up again with the information that gets submitted. But what we want to avoid is having HUD come up to do a confirmatory review and not be 100% ready for them. So we'll have to, we'll just have to, follow the bitter pill, which is, our current designation for another year, but, knowing the attention to detail that, Carla puts into the process and insists from, other, big staff. We will be back in good standing. 31, 27.
We owe them money, are we just in the half voucher, or you have to actually send them funds?
Yeah, that's something.
You have to send them funds. It's not like when you have a tenant leave and move in, move out, you have an adjustment to the move in, move out. There's no adjustment on that. You have to actually physically send out a check.
What it means is non-federal dollars, so it's money that you've transferred into reserves.
Reserves and stuff like that.
Stuff
Sure.
like that.
An example would be the developer fee off of Baker Street. A portion of that will need to be redesignated. So
And we'll keep it to as much of a minimum as we can, but one thing you will learn about me, I don't budge facts and
No, that's good, but do we pay them back at the end, or do we pay them back every month? How was the process of paying back?
once I do a full audit of your 2025 to 2026 year, I will have a spreadsheet that tells you what you overpaid landlords, what you overpaid tenants, what you underpaid,
Okay,
all of that. That would give you a
bottom line figure, send it.
And then it's up to Kevin to negotiate with HUD, how that. You're actually lucky because Heather Birchall, who is your HUD representative, is an amazing person and easy to work with. They might not do anything without doubt, because HUD likes their money. But that's a Kevin level, right? Probably a little about Kevin.
No, thank you very much.
thank you, Carl.
So practically speaking, suggesting that should, in similar to what's happened in the past, but practically speaking, we're gonna lose landlords, we're gonna lose housing units, and it's gonna be harder to get new ones if we're including the descriptive standards.
Absolutely.
So where does that leave us with
Filling up there's.
filling up the machine?
Well, it's going to be,
It's not hard.
it's going to be more difficult. It's going to take a lot more handholding with the landlords. We're going to make an effort to actually get them in here and meet with them. Once we get through the audit to determine. Not just where the problems are, but more importantly, what the issues have been. Yeah, I mean, it's that balance between utilization and fulfilling our requirements of providing safe, affordable housing people that we serve. So, yeah, it's we see some pushback, but I don't believe we've lost any landlords who said, we don't want to work with you anymore.
What is the difference between before and starts to smooth things as far as the landlords?
As far as the landlords go, certainly the unit inspections have uncovered some issues of concern. And so we are working with those landlords to get those, the big thing is health and safety issues resolved. And that could be repairing the GFI or a smoke detector. It's nothing outside the realm of what they should be doing anyway.
Well, yeah, if you have a CO, I mean, that's the city's
There you
coming
go.
up.
There you go.
Okay, so there's that well.
Thank you, Jim. That was my next, my next
The city's looking at it and passing anyways.
We have, there's, that's what we want to find out.
Yep, we have, I'm glad you brought that up, Jim, because we have had conversations with building and zoning. I would say it's a much more collaborative partnership than it's ever been. One of the things that we now require before we'll send an inspector out is a copy of the current CO. And so Cheryl was later, but Cheryl now contacts the landlord before the inspector goes up and says, send us a CO. She has a good contact in building and zoning so that she can contact them directly. The city loves it because if we go out and identify something that is concerning, we report back to the city building inspector. So it's
Your previous section 8 person, these people up in apartments that had failed the city's CO.
that's just a given now. You don't have a CO.
Yeah.
We're not even know. Yeah.
That'd be the first thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Good thought. So with that, we'll move on if that's okay. Couple of media items that actually nicely dovetail with some other agenda items. The first one is multiple policy updates out of HUD. It's on page 12 of your board packet. Really, all of these are significant. The revocation of the 30-day non-payment notice pretty much is what it is. During COVID, you could not pursue evictions for non-payment until the 30 days were up. HUD is looking to get rid of this rule, and it dovetails with some efforts that are underway on the state level to reduce the number of days before you can file for termination for non-payment.
I believe they rescinded the revocation recently, a court. I believe they put them to task and back to the same rule.
Back to 30 days.
I think so. I have to look it up.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. There's also a proposal for term limit in terms of folks who are not either elderly or disabled. There would be term limits on how long people can access the public housing and Section 8 programs, as well as some work requirements for people who are able to. This relates to something Carla had referenced earlier, on this one. And then finally, there's some updates to the procurement handbook for PA buildings, which has limited applicability, but we still have to, in some instances, follow the HUD procurement guidelines. We will take a look at this update and make any necessary revisions to our procurement policy and present that to the board in a future meeting for approval. The second second article that I included was understanding mixed status household. This is another proposed rule that would limit access to public and Section 8 housing for families families are not qualified under the rules as it relates to U.S. citizenship. The big thing is a proration of the benefits based on the citizenship status of the member families. They're still working this out, but that would link directly to Carla's comments about the family that was a Peruvian origin, except for the baby that was born in the U.S.
So we would put 1/6
Yeah.
of the. If
A lot to balance, a lot of conflicting information coming out of HUD, and it's making it that much more challenging to do the program. Exactly.
Motion to make it simple agenda.
So move.
A second,
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes.
I should have noted that, on page 28 of the board packet, we've included a corrected, write-off from the March meeting. We deleted, one individual who hadn't worked through the entire process, so
Correct, we have
the actual
reports
write-off.
having ballots, so they've been removed and the tools are updated accordingly.
That's all we just talked about.
Yeah, just for informational purposes, the write-off went down,
Yeah.
because we removed one, delinquent tenant.
You guys had approved the amendment, but I was just like,
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
So under action items, you'll see revision to the Housing Authority's bloodborne pathogens policy. Not a lot of substantive changes, mostly some corrections and grammar punctuation issues. The catalyst for revisiting this was a incident that happened at the Sheldon Towers property, in which so the elevators were down, someone was injured, experienced significant blood loss, trying to get down to the 6th floor to the lobby. There was actually life-saving intervention on the part of 2 of our staff members who provided assistance, and that is not an overstatement when I say life-saving intervention. But again, because it dealt with bloodborne pathogens, we felt it was important to not just revisit the policy, but more importantly, provide training to all staff on how to address what suspected exposure to bloodborne pathogens, cleanup, et cetera, and we had a lunch and learn 2 weeks ago. So we fed everyone lunch and talked about blood and saliva and other secretions. It was a good time. But yeah, it's I won't get into detail in terms of this incident, but the incident at Sheldon Towers, but it was deeply concerning. The situation we were in without adequate elevator service, and we'll talk about that later in the agenda as well.
Resolution 2026-4. Authority, bloodborne pathogen, let's see, effective 4/20, so moved and 6.
Second.
Discussion.
Aye.
CEO report.
So we closed out the insurance claim with HAI Group. I reported at the last meeting that the repairs and miscellaneous expenses totaled over $270,000. And then subsequent to the last board meeting, we were able to resolve the temporary housing costs, which came in at, I believe, around $37,000, the hotels and the parkings and et cetera. We utilized in providing that temporary housing. I will say that the process went very smoothly, and that service that we received from ADI Group was quite good, and I provided that feedback. And also, in the interest of full disclosure, that I'm the incoming chairman of the board for that organization, and so you don't often, nor do you want to, get real life experience. But I will say that as a PHA director and as a board member of that organization, I was very impressed with the service that we received. So it's good to have that behind us. I will say that Gretchen and I attended a staff meeting at the new Olympic Pizza and Pub across the street, and presented a print of the Free Street project that Peter Hunton did for us. Presented them with that print along with a little plaque that acknowledged their these 26-year partnership with the Housing Authority in rebuilding Hickory Street, turning over the Rutland Area Bridge Housing Project in record time during the pandemic, and then most recently, they're really stepping to the plate when we needed them most in terms of getting the Shawny Yards repairs completed. So they were very, very appreciative. What's that? Represented, I'm sorry, Mailer Green. Mailer Green. That's an important little bit of information.
How good pizza would they do for us?
Yeah.
I want to have a free to Olympic pizza.
No, I'm sorry. Mailer Green. Yeah, that would have been helpful information. I don't think they even provided free pizzas during the, no, this is Mailer Green.
Okay.
Just been really, really good to us, and felt that it was important, particularly in light of what happened to Sheldon, to acknowledge their work. The final, hopefully, settlement agreement with the Vermont Human Rights Commission regarding Karen Scott is on the desk of the director. We were took several rounds of revisions and edits, but we feel confident that we've removed any impact, not only Rutland Housing Authority, but all housing authorities in Vermont regarding the processing of regional accommodations. So hopefully that'll wrap up before the next board meeting, but I'm reluctant to say that because I've been saying it for the last 5 months. The Templewood Court electrical upgrades, the Vermont Community Development Program application is completed. Their board meets on June 11th to make some decisions. It's gone back and forth, but it's some of the I think the request is about $395,000 towards electrical upgrades here at Templewood Court. We did receive word from the Vermont Community Development Program of their approval of our what's called the feasibility grant in the amount of $10,000 to help cover some of the expenses associated with the project to date for things like engineering and architectural services. That money is on its way. More importantly, we have zeroed in on the application for the implementation grant. There is work being done, but the funding source that Vermont Housing Conservation Board would like to utilize comes from the home program. So we would have home designated units at Templewood Court now. But assuming that both the BCDP and the HCD grant applications are approved, we'll be able to mobilize, hopefully, right. And to be able to at least get to a lot of the projects underway for the accounting.
Can I ask you a question? Where's the ballot, record ballot?
Mhm.
Is that money sitting in our, is that anywhere in our possession right now?
No, that's in Hunt's possession. Okay, you have to complete the grant application and you draw the money down based on invoices that you submit. So
The
That's
date on
right.
that check is 2024. Usually there's an expiration, we know when the expiration is.
no expiration. It's like 10 years for this stuff.
So we just have to submit the application.
So as a reminder, we got the 650, actually designated spending. We got 300,000 from the API Group Loss Prevention Fund. And now we're awaiting funds from BHCD and BCDP in order to bridge the gap. Sheldon Tower. Otis has finally completed the repairs to what we call Unit D, the library, the two elevators. Shelton Towers, it is, basic certificate, it is completely compliant, it's running well, not running well. Okay,
It's running, but not well. The city has asked that we bring Matt Brothers in to inspect it.
Can we,
Right, test
hold
it.
off until,
maybe we'll do this in executive session. If you don't mind. There's larger implications. Yeah.
I don't know if you want Brad to share, but he did test the elevator last week and we can report out and then say that.
But yeah, we'll save that for executive session. Thanks. Yeah, let's, in light of this, I was out last week, so I wasn't aware of this, but, let's, move item number 4.
It happened late Friday, so
Okay.
it's been fun to bother you.
No, no worries. Moving on to the housing assistance program, as you may recall, this is a state initiative, came about as a result of the Budget Adjustment Act. It's allocated, about 50 million statewide, to assist housing authorities in, avoiding canceling vouchers, essentially. We suspect that the bulk of the money will be used by Vermont State Housing Authority, thanks to Carla and Sarah in my absence. They were able to finalize a letter of intent. The letter of intent is projecting about $94,000 for us over the course of the next 12 months to avoid the loss of current voucher utilization. We're just waiting to hear from, it's ended up in an odd department, Department for Children and Families. It's the state entity that's administrating the funds. Keep you informed of any drawdowns that we avail ourselves of in the interest of keeping shareholders in place. Moving on to House Bill 772. This is a significant and in my mind, long overdue revision to tenant landlord laws here in the state of Vermont. And it has, I think, pros and cons for both sides, if you will. There's some real improvements from the tenants. There are real improvements from the landlord perspective and real improvements to the tenant side of the ledger, so to speak. The advocacy groups such as Vermont Legal Aid and CDOEO are opposed to the legislation. It did pass the House, and it's currently in Senate Housing and Economic Development. I believe the committee is. I have contacted our local delegation to offer my services in terms of coming up and testifying on the proposed legislation. But a couple of things that I would point out: the evictions for notice for evictions for non-payment currently at 14 days. The legislation proposes 10 days. Evictions for cause goes down from 30 days to 21 days. Threats to health and safety or damage is currently at 14 days, and the legislation will bring it down to 5. Make some changes to the eviction for cause due to violent behavior. And it allows housing authorities to issue, allows landlords to issue trespass orders against guests who violate the property rules. Again, we have to comply with the HUD rules, which I guess at this point, they're maintaining the 30-day for non-payment. But a number of these other things would be beneficial, not just to organizations like housing authorities, but the private landlords. So quite controversial. But as I said, I think they represent some long overdue protections, particularly to private landlords who have really borne the brunt of what has been, in my mind, extremely biased rules on the part of the state as it relates to tenants' rights. We are all for tenants' rights until tenant behavior negatively impacts on the landlord and, more importantly, for the neighbors in which tenants live next door.
So I have a question. Like in our handbooks, okay, me being a tenant, let's say I have a guest that comes and they do something that disturbs the other neighbors. Or now it's up to me to be sure that my guests are complying with the rules.
Correct.
In a private landlord, because at that point I'm looking at, that could cause me a lease violation if my tenant. What happens with outside housing authority, regular landlords who are accepting the HUD? Do they get the same kind of, those tenants get the same kind of possible reprimand?
It's up to the individual landlord. That is our policy and procedure.
Okay.
I can't speak for private landlords. I know some are more vigilant about lease compliance and others are a bit more lackadaisical. But this would provide some remedies that can be pursued in a more timely manner.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you for clarifying.
And also the ability of a landlord to issue a no trespass order is a big one.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that we have no control over what our tenants do if we're not there. And
Right.
and it's reported, you obviously get in contact with the tenant, but our hands are pretty tied as to what we do legal.
Yeah.
And it's always been like that, and it's not right. A lot's got to change.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for outside landlords to buy and monitor these.
Yeah. You just can't be there 24/7.
Yes, well,
You know.
and that's true here too.
So this just, I think, provides for a bit more of a level playing field, which has been non-existent for years. In fact, I go back to something you've probably heard me say in the past. By last count, there were approximately 150 duplexes, owner-occupied duplexes in the city of Rockland, in which one half is empty because the owner occupant chooses not to rent those units out. It's just, would rather take the financial hit than deal with the tenant landlord laws and the even bigger losses that the landlords potentially experience and historically have experienced by getting a bad tenant in and not able to get rent. So that's a huge number of units that could otherwise be, help address the housing crisis.
And that should be, that's a statistic that should be presented to these lawmakers.
Exactly.
I mean, they're always complaining about no housing, but stats like that could sway them into changing some of the rules.
I think, generally speaking, the feedback that I've received from our legislative delegation has been very supportive of these changes. So, like I said, I'm more than happy to go out and testify before the committee as to the importance, and I will share that statistic.
I know you just use an Airbnb versus.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine it's a rent to a transient than it is to a permanent. Staffing update, an offer, do you want to?
Yeah, so Stacy Hess is going to be our new SASH coordinator, reporting to Carol and Medley. I believe that position's been open since January 2025. We feel like Stacy is highly qualified. She seems very passionate. She did do one day of shadow with Carol, and Carol felt that she was a strong Canada as well, so she'll be beginning, a day after our next board meeting in May. She's gonna be on the patient district in May, and then we're closing in on a candidate to fill Cheryl's position, so we can define a Section 8 coordinator, and we spoke to somebody last week that is gonna likely end up being a candidate, so moving forward. So,
So that, I did want to update the board that, Cheryl will be moving into a Section 8 coordinator type position to keep us on track with, good references back to Carlos' report in terms of staying on top of recertifications and inspections, among other things. And then we will get a new front desk coordinator, a front desk receptionist and customer service specialist. So again, another item that I'd like to provide you with some. We've completed 2 out of 5 workshops with Teresa Mealy, who you may recall has worked with us in the past. She's an HR professional. We secured her services to present a program called Leadership Unleashed. It's directed at essentially our management staff, including Carol, Sarah, Greg, Gretchen, and myself. And I think it's going well. It's providing some tools on how to deal with everything from the conflict in the work site to the planning to you name it. So it's I think it's been time well spent, and we will provide you with a final report when we get to the remaining 3 classes.
Thanks, Joe. So good. Oh, you just signatures and leave.
It's not much going on.
Now, that's why I put action items for front of
See you, Captain. Have a good day.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Great. Section 2, finance.
yes, so looks like Lindsay did not include it in the board packet. Send it to her, but that's, I mean, they're not reviewing it when she put it in my box, so I will send it to Kevin to send out to all the board members afterwards. So that you don't have it in front of you. And I did choose this month to begin playing around with the format. I traditionally have been going off of how Kristen reported it, and given recent events, I felt it important to be a bit more thorough. So I'll just go over the highlights, and I want the board to have something written that might be a little bit more in depth. So overall highlights, again, this is just through February, so 11 of the 12 months of our fiscal year are captured. So our total operating expenses finished 72,000 under budget, reflecting effective cost management in administration, utilities, and insurance categories. Again, partially offset by higher than budgeted maintenance and extraordinary maintenance expenses. Notable call outs would be our rental revenue exceeded budget primarily due to stronger collections, lower vacancy loss in the part of Gretchen and Greg, and then favorable timing of tenant payments. Areas that we are under budget would be maintenance and insurance, and those reasons. Maintenance costs exceeded budget, primarily the outlet electrical plumbing costs that we've dealt with in the past few months. These expenses do represent necessary investments to maintain safe and functional housing for our tenants. And then regarding our insurance premiums were just higher than budgeted due to annual rate increases and coverage adjustments. And again, I will make sure you guys all receive a physical copy in front of you for the board.
Cash flow report.
Oh, that also not included. I was like, you would share. I'll be the packet that's in the box to make sure that it's.
Occupancy.
So, in this packet, it says at least one new tenant for chosen location, but since this was written, that we saw 4 more last year. Sheldon. Sweet. The Templewood Court recertification has been done for months now. The Sheldon Towers ones just about finished. There's a couple of people that did this documentation on time, so there's a couple of scramblers left, but almost everybody's done at Sheldon Towers as well for their May 1st recertification. As you'll see, we do have a few more, units this week came on board. We have to fill. Unfortunately, we've had a pretty rough run with tenants passing away and or having to go to nursing homes, things of that nature. Quite a few actually in the last couple of weeks, so that's why I see quite a few of those on the pending side there. Those are units of people that are, we got to get the units cleaned out, but very new ones. This came on, maintenance has been busting their tail to get these units all turned over, but they're not stopping. As soon as they get one down there, get added. So, they are working hard, they are getting through them, the numbers are down. Take the I looked at the days. No, sorry, I was trying to forget. Our different program. But yeah, that's pretty much what we're looking at. Quite a few units to fill still, but we are doing most of them are decent. So. And then working in parallel to help get this section stuff taken care of.
So when tenants move out, we're not getting new, we're just replacing them.
Yeah, for the, like Sheldon, those are project-based measures.
Project vouchers that we're not,
Under contract, there's no,
there's no,
there's
say,
no,
hey, you gotta pay.
yeah, no,
We can't fill that unit, we're not giving you any money.
no, that's.
That's okay.
Yeah, they want to fill ours. Say
Yeah,
so. Fill ours up. That's pretty much it. As you'll see the numbers there, it's the waiting list numbers, for all the different programs you have. Still substantial wait list for most of our programs. And that's even after a purge of people either are finding new updates and quite a few people get purged out of that. These were up closer to 200 not too long ago, so we did that biannual update. 30-ish to 80. Depending on the program.
I don't think on the spot, Carol, but, would you say that, because of our robust / resident service program, some of these folks who either passed away or ultimately were referred to transition to nursing homes, that they were able to stay with us longer as a result of SASH services?
I think so. I think, one person in particular that I can think of, her wish was not to go in the nursing home and, she was in her unit up until the very last moment and she didn't have to go to the hospital, but had to pass in the hospital. So I think, yeah, we have an impact, certainly.
Sure.
For sure. I mean, I tell particularly new SASH coordinators that, for whom losing a participant, losing a tenant is probably, as it always is, that really a sign of success is the extent to which people are able to pass away. That's not a failure, that's a success. We should celebrate our ability to keep people at home for as long as possible. So, thanks, Carol.
Property management.
I think right now, since this has changed, or since I wrote this, I probably have 6 now in the court for eviction. We added 8 cameras to Sheldon, so now we can kind of see it all the way around the entire building, including the community room that we could never see before. And the police are still working their 4 hours down there, which is going to be a huge difference in a lot of it. I've completed all of Temple Court's inspections, and Friday I completed all of Sheldon Towers inspections, and those all went well. And then the elevator piece we'll talk about later. And John is covering for the Section 8 inspections right now, so he's out in the community a lot doing those and catching up on the ones that were behind and following up on ones that may not have been done correctly.
Are they still going to be outsourced by the MBK? Or is that?
And then other than that, I think that's about it. I was gonna do parking permits for Templewood, but I'm kind of waiting on the electrical upgrade piece of it, because I don't know how much the parking lot will be dug up and all of that, so.
Thank you very much. What's your name? I did that, but no.
Well, Carla provided with a great update on where we stand with the day-to-day section 8 house. Included in your packet are the cash flow tracking and half funding and projected half expenses. Again, a little difficult at this point because HUD has not issued the renewal funding for the Section 8 or Section 8 mainstream program. The deadline was April 3rd or 4th, I believe it is, and we have still not heard. So, we're like the rest of the Section 8 world, we're anxiously awaiting our renewal funding to determine what this one will have to work with, how many budget holders will be able to serve over the next 12 months. Right now, there's a nationwide moratorium on issuing vouchers, so it's a problem. Anxious to find out what this administration's intent is with the Section 8 program. The dollars would be invested into it. He had signed what is called an ACAP, which is essentially our intention to issue a HAP contract with Cornerstone for their Maplewood Commons project, which is located on 133 Forest Street. Because of the moratorium and because of the uncertainty around funding, we communicated with them we cannot enter into a HAP contract at this point. It is, for that question, a setback in terms of that project. It's relying on Section 8 subsidy in order to not only fill those units, but maintain those units on an ongoing basis. We have 10 8 Marble Village. So this is 10 units, which is essentially a third of the entire property that's going to be Section 8 project based. And simply cannot move forward.
Even though that was the place before.
Well, we've signed an AHAP, which is our intention essentially to enter into a HAP contract, but the HAP contract had not yet been executed, unlike Marble Village over in West Rutland, in which the HAP contract had been executed prior to this moratorium.
They're still working on that place, so I don't know when it's scheduled.
They're in June, I think.
You said with the housing crisis, they would.
Yeah.
New housing.
Yeah, you would think. You would think.
I know.
So following up on the systems program inspections. So my colleague over in Springfield, Laura Ryan in particular, identified a firm to do Section 8 inspections, and in looking at their cost benefit analysis of contracting those out, we mutually agreed that it is a good direction to move in. Springfield has signed an agreement. I have received a proposal from the same company, and we'll be making some revisions to that proposal before we sign it. Essentially, the expectations beyond just the unit inspection will be for this company to utilize the Inspire standards, which Carla referenced earlier, to be certified in the Sparta standards, at least one of their staff, or one of their staff go through the training, and then ultimately they will be utilizing, they'll be asked to utilize a tablet, iPad, sample, whatever, to document the results of the inspection, and those inspections will automatically be uploaded to our PHA web software. I don't think it's out of line to share with you that Springfield is also looking in the direction of PHA web, and so it'll be essentially the same for both organizations, which is good.
That's it. Resident service.
Morning. So at the end of the month, myself and a couple of the staff coordinators are going to attend the New England Resident Service Coordinator Conference, which is at Good Sun.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Backboard.
About $600.
The conference is really grown over the years. We have a lot of states are represented at the conference. So it's at Mohegan Sun because there's not a lot of places that can, take on all of these folks.
So the service coordinator, like our high rollers.
So that's at the end of the month, and as Sarah mentioned, we have a stash coordinator starting second week in May. I'm pretty excited about that. It's been over a year that the position hasn't been filled. I think a result of lack of qualified candidates, and not a lot of them. Also, continue to do the weekly meetings with Gretchen, Stephanie, working with residents with concerns and issues. That's every week. Also, I just recently attended inspections with Gretchen and John at Sheldon. That was a nice opportunity. I got to see pretty much every apartment. I got to meet with all the residents. Met some folks that were recently moved in that I hadn't met yet. Some situations that we're going to try to address and get taken care of. Some folks that have some, if we want to call it hoarding, but they have a lot of stuff. So we're going to try to work on getting that taken care of. But just trying to get things in place and get our coordinator started and get things back on track. As Greg mentioned, we've lost a lot of folks. So this particular panel members are down. I think, quickly as I sign them on, we lose some. So I think we're down to like 74. We should have between 90 and 100 participants. So we're really, and those folks that we're signing on a lot have just Medicaid. So work in progress.
So you can do some with Medicaid? I wasn't sure how.
We can do Medicaid, folks. I need to get a better answer. At one point, I thought it was 7% of your panel could be Medicaid. Last time I heard it, there was not a concern as to how many Medicaid. So at this point, we're just signing on what we can sign on and figure the rest out.
Sugar them all to you, every single one.
No, but it's worked nice. Greg and Gretchen are working with me, trying to get me books as soon as they come in. I have to.
Sorry.
In any case, if you have any questions, concerns?
That's great.
I don't know the old business for new business, but would like.
Excellent.
Question, like it.
You don't need extra session.
Motion.
Motion.
Making this active. Direction, I'd like to have direction stay as well as Sarah. Yeah, that's, and then if we could, make certain. That not recording.
I'll let her know. Are you going outside?